In the name of the Christ who teaches us, in the name of the Spirit who journeys alongside us, welcome home, children of God. The Lord be with you. Welcome to First Presbyterian Church this morning as we gather together as God's people in God's name. It is good to be here this morning, and I welcome all of you here. A couple of brief announcements as we continue our worship. If you would please first take a moment and sign those blue friendship registers on the inside aisle and pass them down. Would appreciate that. Registration is still live for our Jesus Seminar on the Road event. We're getting there. We've got about 40 people registered so far, I think, but there's still plenty of spaces left. Our target goal is at least 50. So if anybody hasn't had a chance to register yet and plans to, the prices do go up in another week or so, another $10 or so. So by all means, jump on and get registered. It's going to be a great event, and I think 3 weeks from this weekend. Going on this coming Saturday, which will be the 7th of September. We have Tri-Pride. Jane has a sign-up sheet back here that we'll pass around. We welcome people to march with us in the parade in the morning that starts at 11. We also have a booth that we'll have throughout the afternoon. We need people to help kind of staff that. So we have sign-up sheets for that. What else do you need to?
Only one clipboard.
Okay.
It's for the parade. Feel free to sign up, no matter what your orientation.
Yep.
We all, it last year, it was really moving. As we moved through the parade route, people came up and hugged us, people thanked us, people applauded. You can't underestimate what it means to show up in support. Brandon has sent a email, some of you suggesting we get there at 7:30. That seems a little early to me, but what he is talking about is we need to gather at 10:30, and we need to get the security. So try to have a little bit of it's hard to know how long. Include the email and your phone and hope to see you.
Thank you, Jane. Also on Saturday is ARM is having a yard sale fundraiser that's going to be right here. If you have a few minutes, maybe on your way to Tri-Pride or something, drop by and check it out. Anything else you need to say on that, Julia or Sherry?
It's 8 to 3.
8 to 3, okay.
If you have something to donate, you're welcome to take it to Elizabethton. Now, it's just across the private lot, and she'll store it for you to see if you want to contribute.
Yeah.
Make it on your way to Tri-Pride.
Yeah, so a lot going on this Saturday. Saturday is also Food for the Multitude. We need workers for that, as always, plus cookies and vegetables. I'm sure that's an ongoing need for us. If you're able to help with that, especially if you're either not able to go to Tri-Pride or you're planning on being there later in the afternoon or something, plenty of time to help with Food for the Multitude Saturday morning if you can, or even if you can just help with supplying some food, see Julia. That's all Saturday. Julia, you want to tell us real quick about the... Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
2 weeks from today, we are having our annual dinner on the grounds. Now, this is a tradition that started many years ago because even then they knew we had such a special, wonderful church. And it's a celebration that we do each year. Your community life committee is providing that good, nutritious, healthy food, fried chicken, and the drinks. What we're asking from you don't have to sign up, just come and bring a dish to share. You don't cook, go to Ingles, go to Kroger's, go somewhere, just bring a dish to share and join us. It is wonderful. Weather permitting, we will be meeting outside under the trees. Now, as the moderator of Community Life, I want to put out a plea. If you can make it that Sunday, I really really need some help, because some of my neighbors are having health issues or are moved up into deacons and elder positions, need some help with these tables out, probably starting at 9 that morning. So if any of you are here, we'd love to have you join us. But even if you get here and forget to bring something, come join us. There will be plenty.
Thank you. Quickly, just maybe a word of warning or information as well. We've been moving toward, if you've checked our Facebook page, you see we've had a video of the service online the last couple of weeks. That's wonderful. We've gotten some folks who are already watching that. This morning, we are actually, if all is going according to plan, live streaming on Facebook. So mostly, I guess, choir, you probably don't want to fall asleep, or at least not conspicuously so during the sermon, but just did want to give you all a warning that we are streaming live this morning, hopefully at least. Also, first Sunday of the month, it means that our Everyone Counts goes to ARM. Just by being here, we're donating $1 for every person here to ARM. Encourage you to take part in that act of worship by putting your dollar in the plate, but whether or not you do, please know that being here today makes a difference in the community. We're going to welcome some new members later in the service this morning. I also just want to extend a welcome to Aaron again, who officially, I guess today is your first official day. So Aaron is a seminary intern with us for the whole year, at least from Emmanuel, and we're very glad to have her. She's going to be working with youth and young adults and social media and outreach and things. So please help welcome Aaron as well. Any other announcements or concerns?
Just keep remembering Gregory and his family.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Remember Gregory and the loss of his mother about a week ago. So, other joys or concerns? And friends, today is a day that God has made. Let's rejoice and be glad in it as we worship together.
As you are able for the invitation to worship. Why should I wish to see you better than this day? I see something of you in each hour of the 24 and each moment then. In the faces of men and women I see you, and in my own face in the glass. I find letters from you dropped in the street, and every one is signed by your name. And I leave them where they are, for I know that wheresoever I go, others will punctually come forever and ever. Our first hymn is Come Christians Join to Sing, number 267.
Amen.
There's a slight change in the order this morning with meditation.
As we turn now to our time of meditation, our invitation to meditation this week is beyond imagination. You might like to make that a seed thought for the week even, beyond imagination. Sometimes we just can't imagine things being different than they are. Whether it's in our personal life or the world, we can't imagine. We can't imagine forgiving him or her. We can't imagine feeling loved. We can't imagine our world moving beyond the horrible fractiousness that we see all around us. We just can't imagine. Fortunately, we can move beyond imagination, and we can do that through meditation. We can do that by remembering God, because God knows what we cannot imagine, and deep within you and deep within me is a source of wisdom that knows what we cannot even imagine. So for a few minutes, I invite all of us to let go even of our imagination, of all our hopes and fears, and to find that place deep inside, not just us, but deep within all of life, from which we can see again that which is true, that which is wise, that which is loving. And so with that as our invitation to meditation, I invite you to close your eyes and assume a posture of meditation. Long ago, people who paid attention to their experience learned that what you do with the body, you do with the mind. And so let's begin by, as we're able, sitting up straight as compared to slumping. The mind recognizes this as a posture of attentiveness. You might experiment with sitting forward in the pew a little bit, but if it's more comfortable for you to recline, then please do that. Let your body settle into the pew, even as it sits erect, and feel its weight in the pew. Can you feel the weight of your body? Know that that weight represents the gentle tug of Earth's gravitational field and your body's tiny but very real gravitational field. The weight of your body in the pew is a hug between you and Mother Earth. Let your shoulders drop and relax, and draw them back slightly as if you're trying to bring your shoulder blades together. Let your body become calm and quiet. Notice how sitting in this special way feels like a posture of quiet confidence. It is the physical embodiment of faith. And now for a while, let go of all of your thoughts about what has been, about what will be or might be. Let go even of all your fears and your hopes, and exchange them instead for awareness of what is deep within you and all life. And so in silence, we meditate. And now, in the calm and quiet of this moment, would you please call to mind a person or a group or perhaps our whole world who you know this morning stands in special need of the healing peace of God, the peace that passes all understanding. And in your own way, call upon God, call upon life itself to bless them, just as they need to be blessed. Amen.
Our reading for today comes from Luke 4, verses 16 to 29. When Jesus came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was given to him. He unrolled the scroll and found the place where it is written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because God has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, to proclaim release to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to let the oppressed go free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." Jesus rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. The eyes of all in the synagogue were fixed on him, and he began to say to them, "Today this scripture has been fulfilled in your hearing." All spoke well of him and were amazed at the gracious words that came from his mouth. They said, "Is this not Joseph's son? Do here also in your hometown the things that we have heard you did in Capernaum?" And Jesus said, "No prophet is accepted in the prophet's hometown." When they heard this, all in the synagogue were filled with rage. They got up and drove him out of the town and led him to the cliff on the edge of town so that they might hurl him off to his death.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby, for reading, and thank you, Paul and Choir and Roddy. That was a neat mashup. I never thought of putting those three hymns together like that, but it worked really well, so I like that. Thank you. We started last Sunday on a new little kind of mini-series in here of looking at some of the lesser known or more obscure saints in church history. And so last Sunday we learned about a guy named Black Moses. This morning we're going to look at another saint of the church whose official day to be honored is this coming Tuesday. So introducing her, though, is my trivia question for you this morning. Does anybody know when the first integrated school in the United States was? Any guesses? You actually know, Carol?
I remember it, but don't ask me where.
Oh, okay. If you remember it, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest you may be off a little bit later than the first one actually was. So Prudence Crandall was a woman, she was an advocate for women's rights, and she grew up Quaker. And I love the irony of the fact that she was neither Episcopalian nor Catholic, but both of those two traditions honor Prudence as a saint. So Prudence Crandall grew up Quaker, and one of the values that her community instilled in her was the importance of education. And here's where the story gets really scandalous. Prudence had the temerity to suggest that education was valuable for everyone and not just white males. And so in 1831, yeah, I know, I was shocked at that. In 1831, Prudence started a school for young girls in Canterbury, Connecticut. And she taught them geography and history and grammar and arithmetic and reading and writing. And the town of Canterbury, Connecticut was ecstatic over her success. And so the next year, when school enrollment opened up in 1832, Prudence added one more young woman to the class roster, a 20-year-old named Sarah Harris. And you can probably see where this is going. Sarah was black. And so suddenly, one by one, parents started to pull each one of their 40 girls out of the school. And at first, no one was openly confrontational or mean to Prudence. They just simply decided that they didn't want their daughters to be in the same school as Sarah. And so one by one, they withdrew their daughters out of school. Never mind that Prudence's school was very successful in educating their children. This kind of thing simply was not done. And so within a few weeks, Prudence had one student still enrolled, Sarah. And so Prudence had to make a choice. Was she going to cave in to the parents who were supporting her, who were supporting the school, who were paying the tuition for her to be able to do what she wanted to do? Or was she going to lean into doing what she believed was right? Turns out Prudence was actually a pretty good teacher of a lot of things. And she decided that if that's the way it was going to be, she would simply teach an all-black girls' school in Canterbury, Connecticut. And so that enrollment started to grow again. But here's where the townspeople started to get a little feisty. You know, one young black woman was bad enough. They were content to just let Prudence fail and learn her lesson that way. But when her school started growing and more young black women started to attend, the town decided to lean into their hateful ways. And so the townspeople filed a lawsuit against Prudence. The prosecution, representing the townspeople, argued that teaching black people was unlawful because, and here's their argument, black people were not really legitimate citizens. In fact, the lawsuit that the townspeople filed against Prudence actually argued that black people weren't even really fully people. So if you remember the Three-Fifths Compromise from 1787, in which black people counted as only 60% as much as a white person for determining state representation in the House, compromise, by the way, that didn't even count Native Americans at all. This compromise wasn't repealed until the 14th Amendment in 1868. And so it was still in effect at the time of Prudence Crandall. And so the lawsuit that Connecticut filed argued that Prudence's students were not fully human and therefore did not deserve access to education. Part of the prosecution's argument even included the suggestion that these black people, because of their ethnicity, didn't belong in the school, didn't belong in the state, because they were from a lesser ethnicity, and they were invading the land and ignoring the traditions of the good white folk that were there. Now, thank God we no longer look at people of a different ethnicity and use their skin color and their heritage to treat them differently than we are treated. Moreover, I'm glad someone appreciates irony, sarcasm, whatever. Thank God we no longer accuse people from other cultures of invading our land and our culture and using up resources that rightfully belong to good white folk. Things got so bad in Canterbury, Connecticut. At one point, the people of Canterbury, this just blows my mind, they poisoned the only water source for the entire town. They poisoned it with animal feces just so that Prudence and her students wouldn't have access to clean water. Never mind, that was the same water source that everybody else drank from. I mean, talk about cutting off your nose to spite your face. And so, through 2 trials and endless harassments, Prudence held on, though, and she held her school open for several more years. At some point during those couple of years, she married a Baptist minister, and after about 3 more years in Canterbury, things had gotten so bad in Connecticut that they ended up fleeing the state and moving to Massachusetts. It took more than 5 years after Prudence left before Connecticut actually finally changed their laws and allowed black children into schools. But it took them another 50 years to honor Prudence with an act of the legislature in 1886 that included a $400 a year pension for her. If you're at all interested in Prudence's story, and it really is fascinating, I thought Black Moses' was too last week, but if you kind of enjoy learning about these obscure saints, there's actually a television special in 1991 called She Stood Alone, and it chronicled Prudence's story. So that's out there to watch if you want to learn more about Prudence. And so I picked the scripture reading that Bobby read for us from Luke 4 this morning because it reminded me a lot of Prudence and her story. Jesus comes to town. He's preaching about how he's come to bring good news to the poor, to set prisoners free, to restore sight to the blind, to lift up the oppressed. And all of the townspeople say, wow, look at our sweet little Jesus boy. Isn't he cute? And he can read so well. The problem comes not when Jesus is reading or saying those things. The problem comes when he makes it clear that he's also going to do those things. That he didn't just come to preach about good news to the poor and release of the captives, but he came to actually do those things. And it turns out townspeople were fine with Jesus being this cute little hometown boy who stood up there and read, as long as he was just giving lip service to these things. When he started to implement them and it upset the privilege of the townspeople is when they got to the point of chasing him out of town and trying to run him off a cliff. And I started to think about all these other examples of things where it is easy to give lip service to the right thing, but so much harder to actually implement it and do it. And I came across another story just this past week. it seemed to me a very real-world example. So Jesus proclaimed in that inaugural sermon that he had come to set the prisoners free. Now, a couple weeks ago, the state of Louisiana took up some legislation. They were trying to reduce the overcrowding in their prisons. And what they were going to do was to release all of these inmates who had a record of good behavior, who were convicted for nonviolent offenses. And they were going to let them go so that they could reduce the overcrowding in the prisons. Well, one of the biggest opponents of that legislation that was making its way through the Senate and the House of Louisiana, one of the biggest opponents of that legislation is a Louisiana sheriff named Steve Prater. He's a sheriff of the Caddo Parish. And he is on record as opposing the release of the good prisoners because his source of free labor will disappear. Here is his quote. He said, "They are releasing some good prisoners that we use every day to wash our cars, to change the oil in our cars, to cook in the kitchen. Well, by God, they're just going to let them out." These are people the state currently pays 17 cents an hour for their labor. And the sheriff wants to keep them in prison because to release them means that he would have to pay someone a fair wage to do the work that he currently uses prisoners to do for essentially free. I don't know if any of you ever saw the movie Shawshank Redemption. Anybody? That was one of my favorites, actually, based on a Stephen King book. But anybody else see that? Oh, good. Okay. You remember what the prison warden, the villain in that, the prison warden did, the villain in that movie? This is what he did. He kept innocent people in prison because it was free labor that benefited him. And so the townspeople are fine with Jesus talking about releasing prisoners. They just weren't okay with him actually doing it. That's when the state sets out to execute him. Townspeople were all okay with Prudence teaching young women until she actually started to do it in a way that upset their sensibilities. Much like Jesus, they chased Prudence out of town too. And these are just a couple of stories that represent a reality that really shouldn't surprise any of us. Doing the right thing will cost us. Following in the way of Jesus will cost us. Jesus warned people that were enamored by his words that if they actually chose to follow him and live out those words, that they would end up on a cross. Right? Maybe a physical cross, maybe a metaphorical one. But the righteous path and the easy path are virtually never the same road. Loving our enemies, seeking the welfare of those who have wronged us, sacrificing our own ease and comfort so that others may not go hungry, sharing our resources generously, even the ones we have worked really hard to gain, spending the resources we keep in an ethical manner. None of these things really represent the easy path. More often than not, they represent the path of most resistance. But I'm also convinced more and more that might even be the best litmus test for how we live, is to ask how much it's costing us. Will we cave into the cheap, easy path, or lean into the way of the cross? Amen. I will say as a little transition piece, I guess, one of the reasons I appreciate this church community so much is because I feel like one of the strengths that I gain from this, one of the things that I really benefit from, is a whole group of people who are always challenging me in good and positive ways to not make the easy choice, but to do what's right for the world around us in the community. And I am grateful for this family of people who can come together and try to live out what we say we value. And that's why it's such a joy this morning, too, to welcome some new members to this church family. And we're going to do that now. So Kathy and our new folks who are joining with us this morning, if you would come up and let's stand around the font. We'll join together. I'm going to invite Kathy to introduce our new folks to us, Jane, Curtis. And yeah, let me, will you use the mic just so everybody can hear? And I'll get out in front of you. Yeah, please just introduce them and then come down and join us. So.
Okay, well, we're very excited to introduce new members to you. So on the there is Curtis Bagshaw Davis.
And Curtis works at ACT in Johnson City, and he's currently trying to find a new place in Kingsport. He has 3 cats, Riff Raff, Phantasma, and Grim.
All right.
He considers himself widowed, though not legally so, from partner Jason Bagshaw. His interests and hobbies are art, drawing, photography, arts and crafts. And when asked what brought him to our church, he said that he had felt ostracized for being gay at another church in the area, and he found us through the Tri-Cities Pride Directory. And then we have Jim True next, and Jim lives in Irwin, and he was looking for an open-minded church and was introduced to our church by a friend. He enjoys drawing and listening to music. He attended regularly several years ago, and so I was really delighted to see him back home again during the spring of this year. And then we have Suzanne Moody, and Suzanne is a snowbird, and she winters in Florida, where she's from. While here, she lives in Johnson City, and her daughter and her family, including a grandchild and another one on the way, are the big drawing card for being up here. She's a retired medical technologist. She loves animals, and she has 3 dogs and volunteers in areas involving animals. She also plays pickleball 5 days a week, which I'm anxious to hear what that actually is. And when asked what brought her here, she made this marvelous statement. She says, as a mother of a gay son, I was looking for a progressive, open, and accepting church. I enjoy learning, hearing new points of view, and service to my community, which can all be found here. This church is about people, social justice, and promoting the message of Christ. And then we have Jane Wyatt, and Jane is Brian's mother, and she's going to be moving to Johnson City once her home in Columbia, South Carolina sells. And of course, we'll be interested to hear some stories from her for sure.
Nope.
She's a retired elementary principal, and she says she discovered watercolor painting since retiring, and she also enjoys acrylic painting and sewing and photography, and she's very interested in programs that support school readiness for young children. She's an ordained Presbyterian elder and has served in many capacities at her church and in the presbytery, and she looks forward to getting to know our church, this new church family, and we're looking forward to getting to know her as well as everybody else. And we have Carmi Kuda, and Carmi had moved to the area just a year ago from Uruguay, where she was doing mission work, and she's going to Emmanuel Seminary. She works with in the migrant education program. I believe that's in Morristown, is that right? Carmi?
It's all East Tennessee, but Morristown's where most of my family live.
Okay. And she enjoys biking and fixing things. And so she was introduced to our church through other students at Emmanuel. And I believe that's got everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So as we kind of officially welcome, of course, the session voted this morning to receive everybody as members, so everybody is official, but there's a short little litany in your bulletins that you'll find that is a kind of an affirmation or reaffirmation of faith, and then some questions to you all and welcoming these new members. So let me invite us, if we are able, to please stand, and I'll kind of lead us through that. The questions of faith, I'll look at you all, but invite all of us to respond. So, do you believe in God revealed in creation as the source and fountain of life? Do you believe in God revealed in servanthood and love as embodied and taught by Jesus Christ? Do you believe in God revealed as spirit, as breath, as wind, the liberating wellspring of life? Will you, this congregation, welcome these new friends as part of this church family, just as God has welcomed them into the universal human family of God? Will you support them in love, honor the gifts that they bring, and together with them work for the reconciliation of the world? Then I invite us to take a moment and share the peace of Christ, and in particular, as we pass the peace, please take a moment, as you can make your way up here, and welcome our newest members of the church family. So.
And peace.
You all are wonderful. Thank you very much. Jim, right there, buddy. Sounded good. Peace to you. Peace to you, Jim. Yeah. That was good. Thank you very much. Robbie.
We have to. We're TV stars now. We have to.
All right.
So as you're making your way back to your seats, our next thing in the service will be hymn number 824, but just a word of explanation, I can make it up there. We initially had two more folks that were going to be joining with us this morning, John and Margaret Harpool, who moved down from New Jersey recently. Many of you have met them. Unfortunately, Margaret is just really ill this morning, and so they stayed home. They'll join with us another time, but that's why we skipped over the baptism part of the liturgy that's in your bulletins. And also, if you want to say a little prayer for some quick healing, I'm sure they would not object. Let me invite us to stand and join together in hymn number 824, Near to the Heart of God. I invite us to continue our worship as we receive our tithes and offerings. in Jesus' inaugural sermon there, he bridged that gap between just talking about things and embodying them and acting them, living them out, and that's the part that got him into trouble. This table, every time we come here, is a way of putting the words that we say into practice. Because if you think about Jesus' ministry, one thing that he did over and over was to eat with people, and not just with the right kinds of people, but with the outcasts and the sinners and people that nobody else wanted to dine with. And Jesus created a table where everybody was welcomed, everybody was fed, no one went away hungry, and everyone had equal spot at the table. We come here, we are reminding ourselves that that's part of our ministry. Whether we're talking about doing that at lunch after church today or metaphorical ways that we do that we create space at the table for people who are different than us, for people who don't belong, for people who other voices don't listen to. We create space for all of those voices and those people. And when we do that, we are living out the ministry of Jesus Christ. And so I invite you to reflect on that as you come to the table this morning and share in this practice of making our faith real. This is the bread and the wine that Jesus shared with those who followed him so that they too could experience being at table with Jesus. As you come forward, I invite you to come down the center aisle. The ceramic cups have grape juice. The glass ones have wine. There is gluten-free bread in little trays on both sides. Take some bread or wafer, dip it in the beverage of your choice, return down the side aisles. This is the feast that Jesus has prepared. Come, all are invited. If our elders who are serving would come forward first, please. And let's see, Sherry, you do bread right there. And then Generous and life-giving God, we give thanks for these gifts. We give thanks even more for this church family that calls us together. More every day. Welcome those outside the circle by just growing the circle larger. Be with us and motivate us to do your work, not just in word, but in deed as we go forth from here. In your name we pray. Amen. Our sending hymn this morning will be number 306, Blessed Be the Tie That Binds. I invite us to stand and sing together. As you go out from here this day, go out not to choose the easy path, but choose the right path, the path of most resistance that leads us closer to the heart of God. As you go forth from here today, may the road rise up to meet you. May the wind blow always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. May the rains fall softly on your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of her hand. Amen.